You are listening to Insurance Untangled podcast, where we explore the various challenges faced by dental practices due to their reliance on insurance. In this podcast, we dive deep into the issues surrounding dental insurance dependence and offer practical solutions and strategies for reducing your reliance on insurance. Join us as we interview industry experts, share success stories, and provide valuable insights to help you take control of your practice's financial future.
Welcome back to another amazing edition of the Insurance Untangled event. We had an awesome event on the 1st of March. This was a 3 hours of CE event, started at 12 Eastern time. We had some amazing speakers who shared their wisdom. And the theme of this event is avoiding the biggest mistakes. So we all talked about, based on all of our collective experience, what are some of the things that you want to learn from other people's mistake? So hopefully you don't make those same mistakes. The speakers included Ben, myself, and Jordan. We also, as you know, the founders of the Insurance Untangled event. Also, we had Morgan Millett, Eric Block, Erica Aguilera, and Tessina Bullock. So we had some amazing lineup of speakers. This 3 hours went by so fast. We had 2 panels, a lot of keynotes or short presentations, and 3 hours of CE. So let's jump in and recap this event for our listeners. Ben, thank you for joining me today. And today, Jordan couldn't join us, so it's going to be just the two of us. So let's start by talking about what was your topic, Ben, and what were the key lessons?
Yeah, so I sort of shared my time with the other billing experts, the billing, coding, and insurance experts, and we talked mostly about the common insurance administrative mistakes to avoid this year. And my tip was on the fee negotiating side of things with insurance. I'm seeing a lot of issues where many practices are trying to do the umbrella network optimization, and they're telling the insurance companies what they're planning. You're telling the people that have the decision-making power to honor your umbrella network approval, right? And when you do that, when you share too much with the insurance industry, especially as it pertains to getting a higher fee schedule through another umbrella network, that does interfere with the process, right? It gives the insurance companies the ability to delay or even block that move entirely. So the bulk of what I talked about was surrounding that, is just in the sense of when you negotiate fees, especially when you do contract optimization using umbrella networks, you have to keep your plans to yourself. Don't share your plans with the insurance carrier. It's kind of like going to war and then sending an email to your enemy and outlining your entire attack plan the next day, right? Don't do that. Keep them in the dark. No. Yeah, so that was probably the most important thing that I mentioned on that webinar.
Yeah, I like the fact that you call them an enemy. They are the enemy, right? Unfortunately, it's just they don't act in any good faith to help dental practice owners. They really focus on how do they not pay claims, how do they not pay what they need to pay, and make your life difficult. So you have to treat them as such. Don't pretend or assume they are the nice guys. They are not. Yeah, let me jump in and talk about some of my lessons. I was one of the speakers, and my topic was, again, the same theme, the biggest mistakes practice owners are making. The 4 things I talked about, the 4 lessons I shared with our audience. Number 1, SEO is a winner-take-all game. I'll explain that. Number 2, not mastering dental buyer's journey. Number 3, not converting new patient calls to appointments. Number 4, wasting money on PPO plans and AdWords. So SEO is a winner-take-all game. What you need to know here is 95% of the free traffic goes to the top 5% of practice owners who are crushing SEO. So if you're not in the top 5%, you pretty much are not going to get much from Google for free. So the question is, how do you get into the top 5%? We touched on, there are 6 things Google cares about. You have to ace all of them, not just one time, but every day, every week. So we talked about how to do that. We even offered a marketing strategy meeting, which is insuranceuntangledcom/MSM, if people want to figure out how they can, dominate the SEO game and get into the top 5%. With regards to dental buyer's journey, we talked about the steps, right? People start by searching on Google. Yes, do well on SEO. Second, when they go to those pages, are you convincing them to pick up the phone and call? Do you have before and afters? Do you have compelling videos? Do you have reviews? So the simple things most practices don't have, and so they don't master the dental buyer's journey. That's the second mistake they are making. The third one is the average dental practice in the US is only booking 1 out of 3 new patients. Let me repeat. The average dental practice in the US is only booking 1 out of every 3 new patients. So if you are in that bucket, then you're going to miss out. You're going to lose a lot of your marketing dollars because they're not converting into new patients. And the last mistake I talked about is wasting money on AdWords and PPO plans. So if you're going to spend $1,000 on a CEO to get the same results, you would have to spend $5,000 on Google Ads at least. To get the same results, you need to see $30,000, $40,000 worth of patients. That is what you collect. But you end up giving up another 30,000 because the write-off is massive. So the ratio of what you're going to spend on PPO plans is 30-1. So instead of spending $1,000 worth of marketing and keeping all the profits to yourself, you are giving the fat cats these write-offs because they control your fees. They don't pay you the full fees that they control. So you're giving up so much money because the fact that you're on a PPO plan. So those were the mistakes I talked about. Let's switch gears, Ben. Let's talk about the next speaker in this round. And that was Morgan. So what are the key lessons you got from Morgan, and what was her theme?
Yeah, so on the insurance panel with Morgan, Erica, myself, and Tessina, several of the things that Morgan was asked were things such as, steps offices can take to retain patients, to, one thing offices can do to become more efficient in the day-to-day operations, common mistakes you see when it comes to EOBs and posting those payments. And then the last question that she answered was, what were some of the things dental offices can start doing today to optimize their collections? So Morgan is a big believer in the processes, right? From the very basic processes, collecting the right information from the benefit breakdown. She kind of reiterated that a number of times to ensure that you're working off of the right information when you're giving the patient a treatment plan. Keeping your AR clean, right? Not having an accounts receivable that's above 90 days. Keeping it as clean as possible. That way you don't have to play catch-up work and just waste a lot of payroll hours working on claims that are more difficult to get processed, right? So there was some mention regarding timely filing that both she and Erica talked about as well. When posting payments, there are some issues that she mentioned with regards to posting incorrect amounts, not factoring in downgrades, alternative benefits, things of that nature, sort of taking a rushed approach instead of a methodical approach towards AR management. So she's saying, take your time. When you post payments, if you have problems, when there's discrepancies, ask questions. Make sure you have a friend that's or a number of friends or Facebook groups. I don't think we talked about this quite a bit, but my caution is that when you're given a recommendation to go to a chat forum, be very careful. I think Erica or somebody mentioned this that kind of tied into what Morgan was talking about. Be very careful with where you're going to get information, because a lot of times people are teaching practice administrators the wrong information. They have a good heart, but they're teaching you something that's incorrect. So just make sure that you get good information from reputable sources. Vet them out. Look at one protocol and see if you can find at least 3 or 4 other different people that can vet out that exact same protocol. So with Morgan, it was very much a systems and process to ensure that you have one in place and you have team members that are bought into that system and process, to where your management of your claims, your AR, your insurance submission, the insurance verification, it's all built in a system. You have a good system to be able to manage those things efficiently, because it can get easily overwhelmed in dental practices. So those are some of the highlights that I heard from Morgan from last Friday.
Thank you. Let me talk about Jordan. He was focusing on the mistakes that he has seen practices make. He's the founder and CEO of BoomCloud. They have been helping practices for quite a few years now with membership plans. The first thing he talked about is this idea of same store growth. If you look at earnings reports, especially any kind of retail business, the number one metric that everyone looks at is same store growth. Let's say Walmart, Costco, McDonald's. If that store is not making more money next year, then they can't survive, because just with inflation, they just have to make a certain amount just to keep up. Only when they make more than that minimum inflation number, that's when they start growing, and that's when they start making money for the shareholders, right? Because shareholders want the business to be worth more next year than it's this year. So if your business is making more profit, making more revenue because of same store growth, now you have something fundamental. And he talked about, like, many practices don't do that. They don't know how to do that. And membership plans and marketing are good ways to create same store growth, because the members will keep paying you money every year, every month. So on day one of the month or day one of the year, you have money for the $30,000 in your bank account. Now, anything on top of that, they're still going to come in for treatment. They're going to do other things. You're going to have other patients. Now it's gravy, right? So your bills are paid for from this insurance plan, and also you can increase your membership plan. So instead of having 400 members, maybe you can work on getting 500. So you talked about marketing and other techniques to grow the membership plan.
Yeah.
And the other key point that he made, at least that I got from this, is that when a person is on a membership plan, they are more likely to want to spend more, because they're like, I'm already spending money. Let me get the most out of it, right? The people who go to Costco spend 4 times more than the ones who go to a similar store that doesn't have a membership plan. 4 times more. Same thing with Amazon Prime. People who have Prime spend 3 to 4 times more than the ones who don't have Prime. Why? Because they're like, I'm already giving a membership fee. Let me get the most out of this, the fee that I'm paying. So those are the lessons from Jordon. Let's switch gears, and let's talk about Tessina. What did you learn from Tessina, Ben?
Yeah, there were several key things that she brought up. The first one was not keeping up to date with the ADA codes. This year in particular, there are a lot of changes to the current dental terminology, the coding that we use. And a lot of times when you look at a practice's system, you can tell whether they're up to date on their coding and their coding knowledge by the fee schedule that they have, the list of codes that they use and the ADA form that they use. And so she mentioned that a lot of times when she looks at client data, they're using the 2012 ADA form, and they're using the CDT code set from 2005, where they don't have all the updated codes. So knowing the codes and being familiar with them and having them updated on a regular basis, on an annual basis, is usually how the ADA does it. She advises to keep on top of that, because it does equate towards lost revenue if you don't keep up with those codes. The second one is the consequence of not billing your office fees to insurance. A lot of times, dental practices bill out their PPO fees, which in the grand scheme of things gets put into a database that pulls down the percentiles, right, in dentistry. So the percentiles, for the most part, I've been told that they do factor in those types of anomalies. But how can that be an anomaly when about half of the dental practices are submitting PPO fees? That is now sort of an accepted data saying, well, this is not an anomaly. Half of the practices are submitting fees at that percentile range. So therefore, it's put into the percentiles that you use. And a lot of times those percentiles are much lower than they should be, right? Insurance carriers do the same thing. Well, I guess that's sort of the messaging for the insurance carriers, is that they use that data to lower the PPO fees. So that's the problem in the industry that we've been experiencing for a long time, is the fact that PPO fees are low, in large part due to the fact that they're intentionally working off a data set where they know they're measuring fees against their own fee schedules, right? Because half of the practices submit low PPO fees. So the other part that Tessina talked about is when patients don't sign treatment plans. When we see this all the time, where patients dispute treatment, what was billed to them and so forth, and there's no acknowledgement that they actually agreed to move forward with treatment in writing, right? So you're opening the door for potential liability if you don't have the patient sign and agree to those treatment plans. And then finally, Tessina did speak about how offices don't submit corrected claims in the correct format, which results in not getting paid at all. And we see many practices go through an appeal process 2 or 3 times sending in the wrong format to get those corrected claims corrected. They don't ever get corrected because they're never submitted in the right format, and practices just give up and move on. So when you look at what Tessina talked about and you equate that to what does that equal in terms of loss opportunity in the average dental practice, arguably it's about a 7% hit that practices take by not focusing on these areas. So that's a summary of Tessina's talk or involvement.
Thank you so much, Ben. Appreciate it. Eric was another speaker. He was Dr. Eric Block. He's a practicing dentist. He runs a very large practice. I'm proud that he's an Equa client. I have known him for like 4+ years now. He talked about several things. The 3 big things he hit on is morning huddles. So let me talk about morning huddles first. Morning huddles, he shared with us that it's a game changer. So 7-minute meeting every single morning, everyone gets on board. And the whole point is, how do we make the most out of today? Who are some of the patients we can add in some high value services? Who are some of the patients we can maybe fit them into an open hygiene slot? Who's somebody we can ask for a Google review because they are so focused on getting 5-star Google reviews. How do we make it easy for them? The other key thing he talked about is, the impact dropping insurance has had. He took a multi-year approach to dropping insurance because he runs a multi-million-dollar practice, which is a large team and so forth. First, he dropped the tiny plans, right? Then he dropped the plan that was 20% of his patient base. Then he dropped the big one that was 50% of his patient base. And he did it step by step. Very first thing he did before he even dropped the first plan is he started doing marketing. So currently he gets 50 new patients calls a month, and that number continues to grow. He's ranking for 400-500 keywords and phrases on page 1 of Google. So that's the first thing he did, right? Because before you can drop the plans, you need to replace those patients who you will miss from those plans you're going to drop with Google and SEO. Then slowly, as the SEO started building and he started ranking more and more, he dropped the worst plan, and then he dropped the next worst. And then finally, he's completely out of insurance. It's a large practice, but totally out of insurance. The bottom line of dropping insurance, his profits are up significantly. Why? Because he's not writing this massive invisible check to the PPO plans in the form of PPO write-offs. He's also big on Google reviews. He realized how powerful they are. Even the ones with insurance, even though he's not participating on any PPO plans, they still need Google reviews, and they look at Google reviews to decide whether to come to you or not. So it has become the decision-making factor. So SEO helps people find you, but then Google reviews brings them home. So he was huge on that. So morning huddle, Google reviews, and dropping insurance. Let me talk about the last speaker we had. Of course, she was not the last. She actually spoke twice, Erica Aguilera. So talk about Erica and what was the key lessons from her.
Yeah, she mentioned a couple things that are new, Naren, that I'm planning on and excited to kind of get more clarity and information on, one of which are incorporating diagnosis codes. And I'm not sure if she's referring to medical billing, because I know that she does a lot of that. And she seems to be one of the top experts on the medical billing side, but she only briefly touched on that during this meeting. So diagnosis codes, we'll do another episode on that to kind of clarify more on what that is and what specific code she's referring to. But I found that intriguing because, with the diagnosis codes being ignored or not implemented in dentistry, I did read up a little bit about that in terms of new opportunities for dental practices. And it seems like to me that there's a significant opportunity. So we're going to do another episode on diagnosis codes in particular. The other area she talked about is the most untapped hidden profit from a coding and billing standpoint. There's so many different areas, but she did highlight perio. When you look at the issue in dentistry right now, Naren, in terms of wages, there are a lot of dental practices that are without a hygienist right now. And I think it's in large part due to the fact that the PPO reimbursements, they don't offset the cost of doing hygiene because the cost is significantly higher now, right? But an area that Erica pointed out is that there's an underdiagnosis problem with perio, but there's also an underutilization problem where not the right perio codes are being used all the time, which makes a significant impact on the practice income, where if all you're collecting are on pro fees, but you're doing bloody pro fees that should be billed out using another code, right? You're missing out on those opportunities. So there are some reasons behind why a lot of practices are sort of stuck with not doing more perio. And Erica was about to get into it, and maybe we'll do another episode on that. But in my opinion, I think it's just culture, right? Where the perio codes and the reaction among the patients when we present to them that they have perio, or a relatively newer code, the 4346, which is moderate scaling, in the presence of gingival inflammation. That code is not even being used in most practices across the country. But the fees are, $40 to $80 more than that of a pro fee. But the reason why it's not being used is because sometimes it's only covered at 80%, right? Where now there's out of pocket from the patients. So there's this culture in dentistry, which this is an unfortunate culture, where we're so insurance driven ourselves that we're afraid to mention to the patient that they have a condition. From their own negligence, they have a condition, and we have to, in order for us to treat it properly, they're going to have to pay some money, to kind of put down their own commitment in the form of payment as a penalty for not taking care of their own health. So how do you say that to patients in a way that doesn't drive those patients out of your practice, right? So those are some of the things that Erica brought up in the sense that, yeah, she gets it, that the hygiene protocols are difficult, and I think having a good hygiene trainer to kind of go over these perio protocols will help you tap into a lot of the hidden profits that's already sitting in your hygiene department. And then just the overall billing department performance. So I've actually been diving into my own clients' data in terms of what Erica is saying, and I am actually alarmed at how much lost opportunity there is in terms of everybody's billing department. I mean, just the other day, I'm looking at Erica's formulas and reviewing my own client data, pulling 2 or 3 offices. It's easy to find a few $100,000 of missed opportunity. So going back to, the episode that you'll hear next week about how the insurance industry makes mistakes on claims payments all the time, a lot of these things are so difficult to detect in your practice management system. So having a second set of eyes in terms of a billing, coding, and utilization expert that knows the patterns is a good idea to be friends with, right? So that your numbers are being fully maximized from an insurance perspective, right? So those are a few of the highlights, Naren, that Erica talked about, including answering a ton of questions. I don't think we've had the amount of insurance-related questions on any webinar I've attended in the past, resulting from what Erica, Morgan, and Tessina brought to the table in terms of their insurance knowledge. But that's just a quick summary of what Erica talked about.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. I think hopefully our listeners got something out of it. We literally summarized this entire 3-hour presentation into less than 30 minutes. So hopefully you got something out of it. If you like this podcast, kindly share it with your friends, your colleagues, write a review for us. And till we meet again, have a wonderful week ahead.